Welcome everybody to Dr. Lullove's report. We're here live on Restream and live on Substack. And I have the pleasure today of introducing a very, very, very special guest today. So today I have Victoria Doyle, Palm Beach County resident, extraordinaire, just congressional candidate running in the Democratic Party for Florida 22. And she's running on a platform of healthcare access, and we're going to get into a lot of other stuff, but on housing, economic equity in South Florida, in particularly our county. And so I'm really excited to have this interview. So Victoria, welcome.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you giving me the hour today, 45 minutes or so, however long you're able to focus today. And that's great for our audience and great for the people who live in the county and for the Substackers who are now watching. So this is going to be a really good interview today. So let me just introduce myself for everybody that doesn't, because I do very few lives like this, but I am a foot and ankle surgeon, board certified podiatric surgeon out of Coconut Creek, Florida. I live in Palm Beach County. And I do this show on occasion to highlight progressive candidates and newer candidates that are not getting the same airtime that traditional media is ignoring, which has been very common this election cycle. And so I'm going to introduce Victoria here real quick and just kind of give everybody a 60-second about you and where you're from and what made you decide to run for Congress, and give us kind of like a little rundown on the district for everybody.
Thank you, Eric. I'm so happy to be here. I love that we're neighbors. You're in
Yes.
Boynton. I'm in Lake Worth Beach. The district as of today is 23. It changed numbers because of the redistricting, but we still don't actually know where we're running or who we're running against. So it's kind of a mess. Anyway, I grew up in New York City. I have 3 sisters, so one of 4 girls. My father was a fisherman who got to flee on the regular to commune with rivers and oceans, which was a nice break for him. Anyway, I went to college in Vermont, law school in Brooklyn, became a trademark law specialist. That's a branch of intellectual property law because I love creatives, marketing, working with creatives. So I actually very much enjoyed the whole trademark branding fights and creativity.
Nice.
Had one daughter in the early 2000s. She's now a college graduate and living in the East Village of New York. She went back home. When she went to college, I had bought a house here in 2015. And every time I came, I didn't want to leave. And every time I got back to New York, more about New York got on my nerves. So it was time. And she went to college. I loaded up a U-Haul and literally drove myself in 2 days to my Florida house. And I've been here full time ever since. That was in 2021. Decided to run.
I've been down here since 2002, but I've been coming down since 1994 when my grandparents bought a place in Delray, and I was the one I drove them down from Michigan. So I remember Jog Road north of Atlantic being dirt after Gulf.
Wow.
I remember nothing after the Turnpike. Like, it was all dirt roads, farmland. It was the Sussman farm. It was the Whitworth farms out here, and it's the population explosion has just been ridiculous. So I remember you could just basically walk into a restaurant and not need a reservation.
Oh, the sweet old days. I mean, we kind of miss quiet, low-key Florida, don't we?
It's not so much anymore.
Yeah, we can't blame people for wanting to be here because we wanted to be here, but at the same time, slight sadness to the sprawl. So anyway, yeah.
So we have about 11 people on the Substack just watching right now. This will kind of fill in a little bit more, and a lot of my friends who know, like Neurodivergent, is logged in. Hey, Neuro, how are you? But I have a very specific question. And this is always kind of like a question that it's kind of like, I think every professional, like, there's that question of like, what made you become an attorney? Like, for me, like what caused me to become so the question really is like, what was that turning point? What was that gotcha moment, that aha light bulb that said, I have to run for Congress?
Biden running again. the Democratic Party gaslighting us about Biden's abilities, Trump winning, and Lois Frankel, my congresswoman, sending me an email the day after Kamala lost to say, oh, well, that didn't turn out how we were hoping. I'm going to need money to fight Trump. Send me more money. The day after, when most of us had given Kamala like entire paychecks to try to win that election.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. So
That's
giving
okay.
to
That's
a
what's
Democrat
live TV.
live TV. My dogs are going to now bark and the roof's going to fall in. I mean, it's going to be nonstop. So when she asked for money the day after the election to, quote, fight, and she had just won re-election, like, thank you for your vote. Hello.
Right.
And then we watched Doge ransack our government, steal our data. And the Democrats, as far as we could tell, did nothing. Were they on the step?
I'm still waiting for them to do something.
I'm still waiting for them to do something.
Yeah.
But that was chapter 1. So Hakeem Jeffries ordered all Democrats in Congress to hold a town hall because he could see the rise of rage and frustration and anxiety, watching Musk with the chainsaw. And so Lois did hold an in-person town hall, and we all went. And what did Lois say when she was confronted with anxiety and upset questions? I quote, if you don't like my answers, you run for office. Click.
I was in the room when she did that.
There you are. So that's literally the moment when I said, careful what you ask for. I'm running.
Yeah.
I quit my job. And my nearest and dearest threw me a little starter money. Neighbors, friends, people were excited. They wanted me to run. They knew me as an activist and a protester. So it was sort of a natural next step to actually run.
I mean, that was, she's been a politician for a long, long time. She was the mayor of West Palm Beach, 40 years. And she's been in DC, I think she came in 2012, I believe.
She won in 2012 and took office in 2013.
So, I mean, 14 years in Washington, DC changes your mentality. So, we're always talking about how Washington and that the Beltway changes people. You know, I mean, we're watching it. We've watched it live with the difference between. I don't see a difference between red MAGA, blue MAGA. It's the same. They're just different opposite ends of the same polar spectrum, feeding into the same money bin.
Sadly true.
So how is, if you get elected?
Yeah.
Okay. Should you win the primary and you win the general, how do you stay grounded to our district? How do you stay grounded to the people in Florida 23?
Great question. I am not a politician and never have been. So I give myself credit already for not being part of a money machine that Lois was part of for 30 years before she ran for Congress at age 64. I mean, we're talking about she'd already had a lengthy career in politics and getting campaign contributions. So there's that. I'm sort of a clean slate, naive, government is good, government for the people, by the people, let's help our people. And I feel that a lot of people in DC have completely lost sight of why they're there and why we elect them. They've sort of forgotten, like, hello, you're there for us, you represent us, when in fact they are working for their donors. So Lois is very solidly in that camp, sadly. I've pledged to never take PAC money, corporate money, billionaire money, ever. I've pledged for term limits. I think 5 terms in Congress, that's 10 years, is enough. 2 terms in the Senate, 12 years, is enough.
Have we had this conversation before? I could have swore I've heard those numbers somewhere before.
Have you? Well, no, not with me.
I might have even said it. But
maybe you have. I didn't know that. So we're in alignment.
Yeah, there's the old line that says, like, politicians can be like dirty diapers. They need to be changed frequently and often.
Ugh.
Yeah. But there's a job to do, and we've gotten away from this representative democracy. And
we have.
I think that's the end point here of what every candidate that's been running around the country, the special election wins, your messaging, from what I'm already hearing, is it's like we've gotten away from this of representing people.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I think that's what's missing, the connection between the office and people.
Yep, completely.
So, yeah.
And
So,
there's so many more of us than there are donors. And I
yeah.
think we, the people, have lost sight of that. It's hard not to feel defeated and nihilistic in these times. When Elon Musk dumps 250 million and buys a president, I can completely understand 90% of regular people who don't have $250 million feeling disheartened, to put it mildly.
Especially a president who says he doesn't care about, he doesn't think about Americans' financial issues. I mean, there have been so many red lights
Yeah,
that it's just like, how many stop signs do you have to run through before you run over and kill somebody?
precisely, which is why Democrats are going to sweep in the midterms, regardless of all this gerrymandering bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think the gerrymandering is going to help, but
I don't
so
either.
I want to.
Leave.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, like in Florida, they've rendered a lot of Republican seats more vulnerable. Was that a wise thing to do in 2026 when we see a change tsunami
Well,
ahead of
you
us?
had a governor that's bucking to be attorney general.
Yeah, well, he can
Mm-hmm.
say bucking to be. That's a new one on me. He can buck
Bucking?
away, but
He can buck all he wants, but
we're still going to lose Republican seats here. Oh, I can't wait.
know.
And then there's like, we have a United States Constitution that builds in checks, balances, emergency measures, whether it's the 25th Amendment and the cabinet turning on the president. They will never do that. They've abandoned their duty, has every Republican in Congress except for maybe two. And impeachment. Hello. I mean, the man is breaking the law right and left. And last time, 2 impeachments didn't work because the Republicans in Congress were unwilling to put themselves at risk, which again feeds to me first, not my constituents first. So I want to impeach the president in the first 100 days, amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United in the first 100 days, and get universal health care rolling. A minor agenda, Eric.
It's literally a minor agenda, but I'm glad that you brought up some of the national stuff. I want to get to healthcare because that's obviously my wheelhouse, but
yeah,
I know we had a really big event here in the county yesterday, and I asked you before we went on live if it was okay to discuss, and I know you wanted to talk about it, but we had a few of the women who were sexually assaulted and victimized by Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein class and the billionaires that are still redacted in the files, and nobody's had any accountability. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a platform to just kind of get it out in the open of how you're feeling and your thoughts on this. This was in our backyard yesterday. I mean,
yes, it was.
and I know there were a few of the Substack reporters and live reporters that were there that are on this platform who I know were in town. And we have a mutual friend colleague who's running in Florida 25, I think.
Oliver?
No, Lev.
Oh, Lev. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Lev
he's gonna unseat Maria Salazar, hopefully, and get her out, and but I want to just give you a moment to kind of get your thoughts out because I know you have a lot you wanted to discuss it. So I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you. So Epstein's crimes happened right here. His house is on Palm Beach Island, which I can practically see from my house. And Ghislaine and her subordinates were cruising the poor neighborhoods of West Palm Beach, Royal Palm Beach, and other nearby towns and cities, plucking girls from their homes and schools. Lois Frankel was mayor of West Palm Beach the entire time Epstein was finally being investigated, indicted, and got the sweetheart plea deal. So she was mayor from 2003 to 2011 of West Palm, not Palm.
Correct. Not Palm Beach, right.
Yeah. The Palm Beach detectives, chief of police did the right thing. They did an intensive investigation. They gathered evidence from about 35 girls who had been victimized, assaulted, abused, raped, and prepared a 60-count indictment against Epstein. That indictment, when given to the Palm Beach County State Attorney, is the proper title, a man named Barry Krischer, was buried. Krischer met with Alan Dershowitz, one of Epstein's dream team lawyers, and the whole focus of the investigation went from prosecuting Epstein to vilifying the girls, getting dirt on them, calling them
Yep.
prostitutes, and killing the indictment. So the Palm Beach law enforcement authorities were enraged, furious, and got the FBI involved to try to revamp the original indictment and get this guy. We know that didn't work. Alex Acosta came in, and between Krischer and Acosta, Epstein pled guilty to 2 counts of prostitution, 1 prostitution of a minor, which is an oxymoron and disgusting in and of itself.
Yes.
So he was sentenced to 13 months in a local stockade, literally the name, and given a work release 6 out of 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., during which he abused more girls. So this area completely failed.
Yes.
The victims failed to stop Epstein from another 25 years of rampant international sex trafficking, abuse, rape, etc. And therefore, the Oversight Committee, which is, of course, majority Republican right now, but the Dems held what's called a shadow hearing because it can't be legit because they don't run the committee in West Palm Beach, in City Hall, that Lois Franker herself built for herself. So there she was on her home turf with esteemed members of the Oversight Committee, including Maxwell Frost and Melanie Stansberry and Garcia. And they heard from survivors, and it was absolutely gutting yet again, as it is every time to hear from them. I mean, I just give them a break. There's a part of me that just feels like they should not have to do this. We don't need more of this.
Yeah, the whole thing has been the lack of accountability is just continuously victimizing these women.
That's how I feel.
Year after year after year and decade. And literally the government, this is where the FBI was supposed to protect the people.
Right.
Right. This was the whole charge. Isn't the charge of the FBI? It's to investigate criminal activity under US code and prosecute those that have deemed to have violated federal law.
That's
and
right.
These girls, and they were minors. Now they're in their 30s and having their own children. And the heart-wrenching testimony yesterday of one of the survivors who was a Jane Doe, whose name was in the file unredacted 500 times.
Pam Bondi did that.
Yeah.
Is that a crime? Because it should be. That woman spent her life keeping her name out of the public successfully until Pam Bondi put it out there 500 times. And now her entire life is flipped upside down.
There have been, and I just want to take a moment here to acknowledge a few of my fellow Substackers. There have been a few women in particular, Tara Palmieri, Ellie Leonard, Elisa Valdez, Ashley Aloran. They have done a lot of investigative research articles into all this since the files have come out. There have been a lot of writings on we know now more about New Mexico, the Virgin Islands, the money, more people. I mean, this is if there is zero accountability when all this is over, we're failed. We're done. We're finished. So
we don't have
I wanted to give you the platform there and to acknowledge what happened here yesterday. And I don't want to make this all about the Epstein because we have a lot of other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about healthcare now.
Last
thing.
Go ahead. And people are upset when I say this, but I have to say it. There was press around what Epstein had done and the plea deal at the time. I've read it. It's clippings from the Palm Beach Post and other papers. Lois Frankel said, and I'm not exaggerating, not one word until 2018. No. Not one word. From 2003 to 2018, when Julie K. Brown, our total shiro at the Miami Herald, brought this to the nation's attention.
I forgot to mention Julie, who finally got a Pulitzer.
Yes. Fabulous. So anyway, yes. I bring this up because if I get elected, and I'm already doing it as a candidate, I will use my bully pulpit for good. Lois can show up at any meeting and be given respect, time, press, and ears to speak out on things, even if it doesn't fall in her particular jurisdiction or purview of power. She does not do that. She never did it for the Epstein victims, now survivors. And it angers me. I'll be honest. She was the mayor. She was here. Girls were trafficked right in her city. So I brought that up yesterday. It is not a big part of the story, and I don't want to blow it out of proportion. But just to say, using your bully pulpit for good is part of the job, and we should demand that of our representatives.
I agree with you.
Thank you, sir.
It's a very common sense answer for a very simple problem. We just yeah. I'm not even gonna justify anything on top of that. You said
It
what
can
needed to
only
be said
help.
about it.
It
Yeah.
can only help. It can't hurt. So speak out. On to universal health care.
On to universal healthcare. So okay, so as a physician, I'm seeing patients every day
Yeah.
who can't afford what they need. They're dropping plans to go to Medicare Advantage plans that they can afford. They're going off of Medicare, fee-for-service Medicare with their supplementals that they got as pension policies,
Yeah.
and they can't afford it even still, and they're dropping to Medicare Advantage. So, like, let's talk about healthcare costs because it's and not the bumper sticker. So let's really go over some real policy changes that you'd like to make. Um, let's start with some kind of wide 38,000 foot view of how you look at healthcare and things that you'd like to start to change in the system itself.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to defer to you and people in the medical industry who obviously know so much more than I do. As
Oh, thank
somebody
you.
who studies policy and wants to understand as best I can, of course, as a hopeful future lawmaker. My understanding is we pay the most of any peer country. We get the worst results. And this
Those that
maybe
can afford it. Those
Oh,
that can afford it.
sorry, yeah, I should
Yeah.
say that. The echelon of those who can afford the best healthcare here will probably always get that. So
Mhm.
that's great. But the majority, my understanding is, are struggling with our current system. And I know I am personally because premiums have gone up so high. And my campaign manager saw his premium triple overnight and his deductible triple. It's like 14,000 a year now. Personally, I don't.
And that was the direct result of this administration
Yep.
and this Congress
Ending the ACA subsidy.
passing the big disgusting, whatever you want to call that, and not continuing the ACA subsidies
Right.
that
So
were set to expire. Right.
my understanding is the very first insurance company to emerge, Blue Cross in the 70s, was a not-for-profit company.
They all were. They all were.
They all were.
They all
Thank
were.
you. Now we are so for-profit
Yeah.
that it's actually staggering how much has changed in such a short amount of time that we know CEOs are making 500 million a year and people are getting denied claims and premiums are up here and deductibles are up here and drugs are up here.
Yep.
So there has to be a fix. I mean, like, this is a basic essential need of absolutely every single person in our country. And so my feeling about the role of government and the purpose of paying taxes is to have our needs met, to the best of our ability as a government. Right now, we're failing on so many counts in that area. So I would love to see a single payer, not-for-profit healthcare system that will radically change how healthcare is delivered in this country. I don't have the right name. Is it Medicare for all? Is it universal healthcare? Is it single payer? I don't care. What I care about is that we extract the greed, we extract the middleman, which is 90% of the system now, and we figure out a system where if you're super rich and want to pay for the private doctors who don't take any insurance, have at it. The rest of us are going to be guaranteed a level of health care that will actually help us.
So this kind of went ahead and where I was going to question, but you just talked about Medicare solvency or Medicare for all. So
Yeah.
right now, Medicare solvency is kind of an issue right now because they've been raiding the trust fund to pay for the war in Iran. Okay. So for people that don't really understand how Medicare is funded through payroll taxes through FICA. That's that little line item you see on your payroll check in your W-2 stubs, on your payroll stubs that say FICA. And as long as people are working, there's money going into the Medicare system. Okay, that's how Social Security gets, and then you have your Social Security tax, which funds your Social Security. So those are two separate funds.
Yeah.
But as long as Americans are working and they're paying payroll taxes or self-employed taxes, then that's how Medicaid and Medicare get funded. So the changes that need to be made is it's not I don't think changes so much to the system of the delivery systems of, because you can walk anywhere and get care. You can walk into an urgent care center and get care. You can walk into a hospital under EMTALA and get care. Okay. And with your insurance, you can get care. The issue is more about how do we continue to fund all this? And with the economy going south, with people becoming unemployed, that decreases the payroll tax coffers to HHS, which decreases the amount of money available for Medicaid recipients, for Medicare
Right.
recipients, excuse me. So, this is where we're at, and that's just I wanted people to understand where the funding comes
Yeah.
from. But so let me go more specific to Florida.
Okay.
So, as you know, we've been under Republican rule and legislature for 30 years, right?
Yes.
When the ACA came out in 2012, Florida chose to not expand Medicaid.
Right.
How hard would you push for Medicaid expansion for Florida at the national level, but then figure out a way to get the state legislatures here with your bully power as one of the 20 congressional representatives
As
to
hard as I can.
push Tallahassee to get that covered?
As hard as I can. I mean, I would go testify in Tallahassee every time it came up until we overhaul the system. In other words, I understand expansions and tinkerings with the ACA, but I don't think they're solutions because of the greed element and the for-profit element. So yes, I will absolutely fight within the system as hard as I can. But my hope is bigger than that. My hope is that we overhaul the system.
And just so everybody knows out there, 50% of all healthcare costs are related to administration.
Boom.
50% is administrative. When you go to Europe, it's like 15%.
Right.
It's so minutia in Europe. We are between the pharmacy benefit managers that are profiting out of the system, and it's not really the manufacturers or the pharmaceutical manufacturers that are profiting. It's the benefit managers. It's all these middle people. It's all these mid-level management directors that are basically saying, "Oh, well, you can have this drug, but you can't have this drug because of the cost issues, even though that other drug may be more beneficial for you." And it's never been about the care, and it hasn't been about the care for a long time. It's been about the profitability.
I find that devastating. I really do.
Yeah.
It's wrong. We are the richest country on earth. We know we can afford this. It's that scarcity abundance argument. The Republicans love to emphasize scarcity. And they're the ones who gave the biggest tax cuts in history, causing our debt to swell so high we're spending something like $1 billion a day on interest. They're the ones going to unnecessary wars for years and years. So don't talk to me about affording it. We know we can afford it. We're the richest country on earth, and we will make it happen. We're going to end tax loopholes. Sorry.
So I wasn't sure if you had saw that, Mayor Mondani in New York had a $12 billion deficit when he took office from Mayor Adams, and now he's down to zero.
Done.
So this is what responsible government should look like, right? And he did it without cutting any essential services, and he did it without cutting a single thing and adding childcare.
Yep. And his speech yesterday said, "We're responding to the priorities of the people." And my heart exploded. That's all we're talking about here. What do the people want? Okay. The majority of Americans want healthcare.
So they just want to be able to live and not have to go bankrupt.
The stress, the anxiety. I mean, my fear of I-95 and being bankrupted by a bad car crash is like daily. I'm like 90 years old in the right lane. Please don't run, because wow, the way those people drive. And I'm sure half of them are uninsured. So guess who's paying for that? A whole nother topic.
That's why. And that brings up the whole local issues, but that's on the state level of how our state legislators have just failed us because they haven't addressed the insurance issues in Florida. We pay the highest. Florida now, just for those of you that are not from Florida, Florida now has the highest inflation rate in the country. I think the last number I saw was 4.7% was our inflation rate here in Florida. And that's exclusive of the prices we pay for gasoline and food, and just our everyday living has gone up. And then the other, I was shopping for solar actually a few months ago just to look at it.
Yeah.
I heard some very disturbing news, and this is on the state regulation side, which will not affect you as the district congresswoman, but as a resident.
Yeah.
that right now, FPL, we're about 16.5 cents per kilowatt hour. They want California pricing. They want 30 cents a kilowatt. So imagine everybody right now, your electric bill doubling
$500.
your electric bill
One more fact
automatically.
I learned recently about FPL. It is the most profitable power
Yeah.
company in the country.
For 20 years, they've
And
been that way.
it pours money into Republican coffers. So DeSantis is completely pro natural gas, oil and gas, polluting gas, and has left renewable energy in the dust. So that's a whole nother topic. The Sunshine State should be #1 on solar power. We could have been such a model state for decades now. And here we are just flailing with overpriced natural gas and AI data centers coming in to raise all our prices.
Which is leading me into our local conversation issues
Okay.
now, because this is where I want to really hit. This is where it's going to hit the district. So
Okay.
our housing costs are astronomical, right? I
Yes.
mean, we are. So what federal levers exist that you think you can pull on? Which ones do exist, and which ones do you think you could pull that actually can make a difference down here?
Okay. We need to raise the minimum wage to $25 an hour. And we need to work with small businesses if they cannot afford that, how to afford that. So we have a small business administration that could be nimble and helping small businesses work with that. With universal health care, of course, that will lift many, many costs of businesses, big and small, because the government is now going to kick in for that system. And affordable housing, we have a housing department. And again, we need far more robust and nimble money put into building affordable housing that's ecologically sound, that makes sense for where people want to live. Let's revive old buildings. Let's buy up abandoned and vacant buildings. Let's not make it all about housing starts and building anew. Let's be super nimble, take an inventory in each county of what we have, what's not used, what's vacant, and get HUD to come in and help. There is money there that is not being used, and people are left on their own, and now they can't afford their first home until they're 55 years old and their kids are out of the house.
So I'm gonna divert real quick, and then just kind of
Sure.
we'll pivot back here. But because you just said using money to buy up and shore up older buildings, so you mean we shouldn't be buying warehouses and creating concentration camps?
Is that a leading question, sir?
No, no.
We absolutely should not be buying warehouses to illegally incarcerate people and then torture and abuse them. We should be buying warehouses to turn them into beautiful lofts that people want to live in.
That's a great pivot.
Thank
I like
you.
that. Do you know of any buildings currently right now that DHS has executed in Palm Beach County that they're using as concentration camps?
I know we have privately owned concentration camps in the county. I don't know of government owned. So no, I don't know
I
of
don't
that.
think that. Yeah, my research hasn't. It's the private stuff is
It's the
what
private
kind of
stuff.
scares
CO
me.
Group
Yeah,
and
and then the state announced yesterday they're closing Alligator Alcatraz permanently and breaking it down.
that
So
was a financial fail among every other fail, human rights,
huge
et cetera.
fail.
Huge fail.
So a lot of our district are renters. There's a large renting population in Palm Beach County.
Yeah.
Do you think that tenant protection is a federal issue?
Yes.
So what would that position look like if you had to kind of put it into a policy term?
Well, New York City, for example, has maybe too strong, but very strong laws to protect tenants. Now, I do need to see both sides. If you own an apartment that you depend on for the rental income and the tenant won't leave, you can't let them stay for 10 years. That's not right. But anyway, a balance between tenants' rights, housing owners' rights. I think more than anything, it has to do with the price of rent. And this comes back to HUD and just building affordable, attainable housing. There is no way in a capitalist free market system to walk in and tell a homeowner what they're going to charge for rent. That's not acceptable.
Right.
And the market distortions are wild right now. They don't respond to the free market anymore because of corporate ownership of housing, billionaire ownership of housing. Like the distortions are so many now. We just seem to have lost the foundation of supply and demand. That's just sort of like blown out.
I know you frequented Atlantic Avenue in Delray probably
Yeah.
more than once, right? I can
Yeah.
think of at least 4 restaurants that have gone under in the last 3 years because of skyrocketing commercial rent
Right.
properties.
Here we go with
And
the Small
right,
Business Administration again and HUD. Like, we can be doing more. Like, I'm friends with Rodney Mayo, who owns a bunch of restaurants and coffee shops, and Subculture in Delray is one of his. He doesn't have enough parking, they've decided, after
right.
approving their parking originally. So he's in a bind. Like, he cannot buy a
And he just
lot.
moved.
Did they
And he
close
just
it?
moved. No, he was well, remember he
Yeah,
had
yeah,
the
yeah.
space
This
next
is his new
to
location.
his
And
new location.
the city
Right,
said, pay us money in lieu of parking. It's called an in lieu of deal, which he did. And now a few years later, they're like, oh no, you need another 30 spots, which, in Del Rey is going to be a $30 million lot. Like, what are you kidding?
right.
So he's in this incredible bind with the city demanding something after the
Ugh,
fact, after the approval, and nowhere to turn, frankly. So they're trying to work with him. And I don't want to, be an absolutist on it. It's still a work in progress.
yeah.
But my point is, when cities do that, there has to be a place for that small business owner to turn and get help. There have to be ways to have public-private partnerships, federal, state, city
And we
partnerships.
used to have that. That's what made Delray what it is today.
Yes,
It was that private public partnership back in the 90s and the early
right.
2000s
That's what
and
built it up into the vibrant, incredible place it is, even if there's no parking.
so this one's hitting a little harder for me because my daughter just graduated high school yesterday. She had her commencement ceremony yesterday. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So our public schools are under major pressure in the district.
They are.
Major pressure. So we've seen cuts at Department of Education. We have, Linda McMahon, who's basically under orders to shutter Department of Education down and to stop teaching kids actual American history and only teach this whitewashed version of U.S. history and not to teach African American studies at universities that are public universities in Florida by decree by the governor. So how do you see the role of the federal government being as a future potential congresswoman?
Yeah.
What do you see the role of federal government playing as with your potential role in Congress, having a role in shaping local school policy at the federal level? Like, how do you enshrine all that stuff?
Schools are local, and I respect that. We need a much more robust Department of Education that has clearly been gutted by this administration. McMahon wants to end public school education
Yeah.
altogether. So that is just so far from, where I am. I firmly believe in excellent public education for absolutely everybody. And it was a foundation of the founding of this country. Let's give equal opportunity to everybody and see what they do with it. So much more spending federally on education. Now, usually that centers on special needs, special ed, specific niche things. We're not coming in and paying for public school systems. However, David Jolly, who's running for governor, and I support him primarily because his 2 top issues are public education and healthcare. So yes, right on, David. That's what we need. So he says our public school system is crashing because so much money is going to charter schools and homeschools.
And there's no auditing. And now that they've done the audits years later,
Yeah,
there's so much diversion of funds out of the charter schools
that's right.
that the students at the charter schools are actually falling behind the kids in public school.
That's right. So how to fix that?
Yeah.
Make public schools the number 1 priority. There are some public charters that are outstanding. And I have toured one, South Tech, and I don't want to deny the value of schools like that. But private charters, for-profit charters, absolutely not. Our public school system needs every dollar. Our teachers are woefully underpaid here. Our student body is declining, partly because of ICE, but also partly because of this whole charter fantasy. And the state needs to fully fund and make much more robust our public schools. No free speech suppression. That is obviously unconstitutional and outrageous. And Black history as American history is vital to understanding who we are and where we came from. And the Department of Ed in DC needs to be better funded and work better with the states so that we can just, again, elevate the quality of our public education nationwide. We know some poor districts around the country, and I wish I had the example off the top of my head, but there is a very Republican state. I'm going to send you this after we hang up, that has experimented with improving its public schools and succeeded beyond its wildest expectations. So that's what I like about public school being local. Like, different districts can learn from different
Yes.
districts. The governors of each state need to oversee and nourish that. But there is so much room for improvement. I'm going to end it there. So much room for improvement.
I agree. I think I was a public school kid. We, as a Gen Xer, I mean, we lived in public school. That was our thing. Only the really, I there's something to be learned with our kids, and we need to get back to, like, I mean, unfortunately, this stupid thing has created more problems than than we can, but so I want to touch on education real quick, because I just had another thought process, and there was another question that, so I am not in favor of these big monster omnibus bills that fund the entire government at one shot. I remember the days when the administrations would have to argue. Each department would then you would have 14 appropriation bills for each part of the government. Are you willing to go back to that type of funding negotiations in Congress to do single appropriations for defense and state and
Absolutely.
treasury, and
Yes.
go back to that type of regular business as opposed to what we're
Yes,
doing now?
because transparency and accountability are completely folded into that. And the omnibus just lets things like, oh, let's add $1 billion to the ballroom, slip by. It's impossible to analyze, process, and debate an omnibus bill. So I much prefer the topic by topic bills, where we can get everybody in charge up in Congress defending the budget. The Defense Department's never been audited in its history. We know
Isn't that amazing?
it's
It's
amazing.
never been audited, right?
Anybody else, any other company, would close. So that's, like, I'm really obsessed with fixing waste, fraud, and abuse in defense and taking down the defense spending, because that's such a huge amount of money we could be putting into universal health care, for example.
Yeah, I had written an article a couple weeks ago that published in Blunt Media about the $200 billion ask that
Yeah,
wound up becoming 1.5 trillion,
yeah,
and how much of it was going to be additional cuts to NIH, CDC,
that's right.
HHS. Like, this is, I mean, everybody, like, all I saw over the weekend was hantavirus. Oh my God, hantavirus. Okay. My dear friend Angie Rasmussen, who is the editor-in-chief of vaccines, is the clinical professor of microbiology at University of Saskatchewan, knows everybody in the ASIP. I mean, she literally went on CNN, I think, on Friday, and was basically like, nothing to worry about. The bigger concern is the slashes to NIH and the
Boom.
CDC, cutting the pandemic response unit, killing all of our national structure security in the pillar of public health
Right.
with this. I mean, this, like I said,
It's
there's
the
a massive
tragedy.
amount of accountability.
It's the tragedy of
Yeah.
phones, right-wing media,
Yeah.
unregulated algorithms. In other words, something this big can become this big in a nanosecond. And the Republicans love it, because you never focus on the bigger issues that are actually affecting you. So trans
Yeah.
people in sports, 5 people in the country, the hantavirus, not that contagious, not a public health worry.
Wasn't even near our shores.
Wasn't even on our shores,
Right.
etc. So little tiny things blow up. Fox News obsesses over them for a month, while failing to discuss the cuts to
Breaking
Medicaid,
alert.
the cuts to NIH,
Right.
the cuts to NOAA, the cuts to the things that affect the majority of
I'm
us.
glad you brought up NOAA, because I was going to talk about climate next, and
Good.
this is always kind of like, we live in Florida, right? We're heading into hurricane season. I think May 1st started our hurricane season, so we're like kind of ground zero for climate change here, and while we've been fairly lucky on this side, the west
Very.
coast of Florida has just been hammered the last couple of years. Between flooding, hurricanes, we had a really bad storm here yesterday, and we got 1.5 inches of rain in 30 minutes yesterday.
Yeah.
Sea levels are rising, and there's this. How urgent is this? on your
Very.
with your campaign, and I mean,
It
you
is.
live in Lake Worth. I mean, you live in Lake Worth Beach. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 10 miles inland, but
Yeah.
but what does it look like in your legislative agenda? How do we get back and address climate change at the federal level, and how do we get back to where we were making progress? And
Yeah.
so, how does your legislative agenda look like on this?
Let's start with electing Democrats who take climate change seriously because they're not beholden to every oil and gas and other fossil fuel interests pumping money into them. So tragically, we've known we need to move away from oil and gas for decades. We haven't done it, and Trump is embracing it more fulsomely as he possibly can. That is a huge existential mistake and threat. We get flooding on the regular here. I learned the other day that Palm Beach is going to be gone. Like now it's visible when Palm Beach will be gone. And since those are some of the richest people in the country, you would think they might, donate money to people who actually want to try to solve warming oceans and climate change. So I feel very strongly that we urgently need to get off oil and gas, become a renewable energy country leader, and do our damnedest to mitigate the damages that we've already guaranteed because we've taken so long. And it breaks my heart because it's so typical with government. These are things we can fix, and we can be nimble, and we can be amazing, and we can make jobs and train an entire generation to be superstars at it.
I
And
like
what do
you a
we
lot.
do?
You're a walk and chew gum at the same time kind of
What
gal,
do? We
right?
go backwards. We cling to coal and give the coal miners hope. I mean, it's just so vicious and mean, and it's so contrary to progress, but we don't agree on progress anymore. Okay?
Which is going to lead me into, I want to focus on the last 10 minutes or so that we have, and I really
Sure.
appreciate all the time you've given me this morning. This has been a lot of fun, but
Thank
I
you,
want to I
Eric.
want to talk about the race. I think it's really important that we talk about the opposition, governance, and your current race in the primary right now. And so we kind of talked a little bit about, you mentioned, Representative Frankel and her. I think you've kind of basically sharpened your differences on your policy changes with her and you. I think you've been very clear about that earlier in our conversation, but our district is very competitive. It's how do you see the race theorizing right now for you? Like, where do you need to outperform? Which areas of the county in the district do you know you're pretty strong in already? Where do you need to shore up?
Good question. I think we have a lot of momentum because of timing, public consciousness. Money in politics is now better understood, more talked about, and finally becoming a liability for members of Congress. So in every speech I give, I am a fact thrower. I am not a personal attacker. So the fact is that Lois Frankel has taken money from Big Sugar, one of the biggest polluters of our Everglades, forever. Not just the pack of Big Sugar, but every fan hool on the family tree that owns Big Sugar. That's a billionaire family from originally Cuba, if you don't know, that live in mansions on Palm Beach. Walmart, a company that refuses to pay living wages, that we subsidize their workers with SNAP benefits, gives money to Lois Frankel. I would not take money from the biggest retailer in the world that won't pay its workers a living wage. So this is a very easy fact to point out. She has no answer to that. I say I don't want or need that money. I'm going to win by talking to people, listening to people, hugging people, because people want change. This is a change election, finally.
Finally, she's
The
taken,
most,
she's taken 1.4 million from a very specific pack.
yes, and I was going to bring that up next. So
Yeah.
I think the most sensitive and probably controversial issue is the state of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, human rights abuses, war crimes, the facts right now of that country and that administration. And I tell everybody, I am a New York City girl. I grew up with many Jewish friends. I have Jews in my family, my brother-in-law, for example, among others. I know people, have friends in Israel who've spent time in New York, go back to Israel. I went to Brooklyn Law School. I had Israeli classmates and friends. So this is not a remote topic for me. You know, I support Israel. I respected the United States' moral orientation, obligation to help found Israel. And I support what we did to help Israel get on its feet, which it has done spectacularly. Okay. Israel is a wild success story. And in some ways, not in some ways, Israel is more liberal and progressive than we are. They have subsidized affordable college. They have affordable health care. They have legalized abortion. Okay. Three things that we don't have. Those are big topics.
Those are pretty big.
Those are big. So Prime Minister Netanyahu comes in and all but destroys Israel's reputation in a very short amount of time. And this is tragic. And the people of Israel, the majority, do not want Prime Minister Netanyahu
No, they
in power.
don't.
And the division between the ultra-Orthodox and the radical nationalists who are going into the West Bank and taunting and hurting and behaving terribly toward Palestinians in the West Bank is not something the majority of Israel supports, wants to see. They're horrified by it. So I say I would never criticize the state of Israel or the people of Israel. I criticize Netanyahu, what he has done on his watch, and AIPAC, the primary non-partisan lobby here that blindly and unconditionally supports Netanyahu. So if you take AIPAC money, you are taking right-wing billionaire American money, Trump money, to support Netanyahu in a country that has been gravely injured by Netanyahu. So that is a calamity. Now, a lot of our Democratic representatives have taken AIPAC money forever, and it was fine. People weren't paying attention. Now they are, and it is a liability. And from Senator Booker in New Jersey to Lois Frankel in Florida, people are upset about AIPAC money and Netanyahu.
And I remember growing up, because I'm Jewish, and I listen, I respect all of my family that's been from Israel and my Israeli friends and family, and I don't respect the government there. I don't like the fact of what's been happening, just like you. But I also remember a time when AIPAC actually did good stuff.
Right.
And they weren't funding evil enterprises, and they weren't funding opposition Democratic candidates that were only in line for their political futures. And it's just a sad, but it's a mess. I like to say there's a meme that went out there. I've posted a few times. Like, we are currently have 3 men in their 70s who are desperately running the world, trying to avoid going to prison.
Precisely.
Okay. So, but now Trump's almost 80 now. So it's like,
there's like no argument when you reduce it to that. Like, again, the will of the majority, irrelevant to those men. It's all about them. It's all about their power and avoiding prison. So it's so tragic.
I know. And I really appreciate all your time today. I have 2 final questions, and hopefully we can keep them kind of short. So, is there a Republican position that you actually agree with? Is there one that you'd push back on in the Democratic Party versus one that you would actually push for the Republican Party? Is there one policy that you do agree with?
Ooh, I've never been asked that, Eric. I'm sure there is. And now I really want to be a quick thinker and find one.
I mean, there's a lot of bad policy there on both sides, but I mean, there's got to be one that,
now it's so extremely bad that it's difficult to, well, lowering the gas tax sounds like a good idea.
Which we know isn't going to do a whole lot right now.
I support border control. I don't support ICE, and I don't support abusing and denying immigrants' rights, but I do support border control. And I do think Biden erred on that and gaslit America on that. And Kamala, of course, adopted his position and refused to criticize anything he did. Big mistake. So those are 2 things. I agree with the secure border. We need borders. And I agree with lowering the gas tax in a time of extreme stress for all of us. I drive an electric car, so I'm not suffering as much, but most people drive gas cars and they are struggling, and it's not okay.
Last question.
Yes.
I actually have 2 more, but this one's going to be the last policy question. So what is the hardest vote you could imagine casting in Congress? What do you think the hardest vote would be?
Probably supporting the defense budget, because I know how fraud riddled it is. But we can't not have a strong defense.
And I think you've gone on record too, also, that you would not currently support the current House Majority Leader.
Oh, well, that's not hard for me. That's
Okay, that
easy.
wasn't hard. Okay.
Hakeem
Okay.
Jeffries needs to go. So that's easy for
Okay.
me.
And
You asked
my favorite ending interview question is: you have one place to go for dinner in Palm Beach County. What's your go-to?
my
It can be
camp.
cuisine. It doesn't have to be restaurant. It can be cuisine. I don't want to put you on the spot with naming a restaurant. So
I'm going to lose votes over this. Darbster, gourmet vegan, gives all its profits to dog rescue. Darbster, West Palm Beach.
Well, you can't argue if you're supporting pets.
I
So
know.
I
I
can't.
have 4
do that.
dogs. Anyway, it's an amazing restaurant. Give it a try.
There have been some really amazing stuff in the chat, and I didn't have time for it. So I want to apologize to everybody in the chat who's been putting out some phenomenal comments. We've had about 35 people watching the entire. There'll be more people that will watch on the replay because of the
Great.
time. But
Hi,
I want to thank
everybody.
everybody on the chat for this. Victoria, thank you so much for this. I really wish you well in your endeavors with the primary. I really hope you get elected. I know we need a change here in the county and the district, and I'm looking forward to exercising my constitutional right in August. And I just really want to thank you and your staff for making you available for this interview today. And I hope you do more of these. And anytime you want to come back on, let me know.
Be bold, vote for change. Oh, my
And
website.
everybody with that, you can, and how can people get a hold of your campaign if they want to reach out to you?
DoyleForCongress.org. DoyleForCongress.org. Please reach out. We have phone banking, canvassing, postcarding. I show up everywhere I possibly can. And of course, contribute if you want and feel, because we are grassroots and only take the small donors. So thank you, Eric. It was a pleasure to meet you.
And for everybody out there, you can reach me here on Substack at drlullove.substack.com. You can also find my stuff that's been written on Blue Amp Media at blueamp.co. I will have the replay available for full viewing. And again, Victoria, thank you, and Philip at your staff, and Steve for helping make you available for this. And it's just such an amazing time with you this morning. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Be well. Bye, Lev. Lev's a friend.
And